Emil Smith-Rowe bursting into the box, and that is a wonderful finish from Emil Smith-Rowe. It's his first goal in a Fulham shirt, certainly at Premier League level. It's the first of many, and look at the smile on his face. That's a quality goal from a quality player.
Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Fulham. Today we're talking about, well, the game that was on Sunday. I mean, it was Fulham versus Ipswich, Craven Cottage. Easy 3 points, as we all thought. But we'll get into that. I'm joined today by David Crave. How are we doing, Dave? You all good?
Yeah, I'm really good. Oh, God, there's so much to unpack on yesterday. Every time we play at home, there's just so many incidents. I was like, how are we going to get all these into one podcast? Yeah, looking forward to having a little moan about the ref and, a little talk about how, another home draw. Excited to get on with it.
Absolutely. And it was eventful, like you say, on the pitch. Off the pitch, I saw fans being escorted out of the Riverside. I saw fans throwing hands behind me at final whistle. There was just too much going on. It's ridiculous. But yeah, we will get into that. And I mean, there is a time where I want to say, without any introduction, and just stop. Hi, Sam.
What's happening? What's happening? You actually had a perfect segue. Like, I can't remember what you said, but it was something like about there was madness going on. And speaking of madness, Sam's here. I'm here. I'm ready to get into it. Do you know what? We haven't shouted out yet. I know we have a lot to talk about, but I want to highlight the fact that last pod was the first pod without a Berenzi there, and it was the first of the year. I thought you guys did so good. That's me plugging my own product. It's like the birds have flown away from the nest. I'm quite tired right now. You can raise it. This is going to be a shambles. I'm ready to get into it. Let's go. Also, that was the shortest intro I think we've ever done by you, Skibby. It was kind of impressive, and I was just laughing for the first 20 seconds of that.
That's all you got to get. That's all you got to get. And do you know what? Complete side note. I'm glad you said your last name because I've always said Berentz. So it's Berenzi, is it?
It's okay. So let's do it. So
let's do this. I want to know this.
Yeah. It's for the people. So so we're South African. So it's actually Barense. That's the Dutch. It's Barense. And the bastardized version of it is Berenzi, because my granddad just basically got sick of pronouncing it to people. So he'd be like Barense. Then it'd be like, Berenzi, Barense. Berenzi. He's like, yeah, sure, fine. And so my dad just ran with Berenzi, and now everyone just thinks I'm Greek. So,
yeah, fair enough.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad we've cleared that up. And, I've been living a lie. I thought we were all Aussies, and here we are as South Africans now. So we are now the South African, Australian, UK. We just love it's just the world is love, right? This is what it is.
We're just everywhere. We still haven't had Skibby's origin story, but that's for another time. That's why you tune in for the next episode.
We're going to get that out of him. We're going to get it out of him one day.
We'll get
the viewers want to know.
I really like the tease. I really like the draw-out and tease. This is how you make good television.
We will get there. We will get to the Skibby origin story, and believe me, it's a good one. So be sure to be there for that one. But without further ado, we will get into it. But obviously, we've got the Discord. There's only so much I can say about the Discord. It's a fantastic place to be, especially in January. If you want transfer news, it is the place to be. There's all these fake journos on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, all saying, oh, Fulham are going to go for Dwight Gale, which never happens. And, we'll get the link coming out the next week. But
one day,
Discord,
Skibby, it will happen.
One day you will be there.
Always Dwight Gale. That's been going on for at least about 10 years now.
Now he's going to be close to his 40s. It's going to be, he's going to come in as the assistant manager or the new manager or something.
Next summer.
But yes, come to the Discord. Fulham fan news. Formerly Fulham transfer has everything you need to know, and he does post on X. Don't get me wrong, but he is very Very
gives
active.
Us the exclusives, doesn't he? He gives us exclusives.
A few exclusives. Very active. You can even ask him questions. What's going on? And he'll go, nah, that's absolute trash. Or there is something in that. So be sure to join, especially in January, because it's a very exciting time. Perfect. Well, Fulham played yesterday.
Let's have a chat.
And I mean, I guess first and foremost, lineups came out. I was sitting having my lunch peacefully in Hammersmith Underground Station, and I saw five at the back again. And I even said it out loud. Oh Christ, not five at the back. And the person next to me was like, "He hasn't gone five at the back, has he?" Dave, was that the same reaction you had?
It was. I too was close to Hammersmith Station. Where were you? Popeyes or again?
I was
where,
in Popeyes.
yeah, and
Can't
a
get enough of
favourite
that,
of yours.
fried chicken.
Yeah. Well,
I've
I
only
was
been
in.
twice. It's not a favourite. Okay.
I was in the Distillers pub at this point when the team news came out, having a beer. I think like everyone, I was a bit surprised to see five at the back. It just, I don't know, it just seems kind of negative to play five at the back at home, doesn't it? So, and we'd all spoken about it before the game, and I think the general consensus was that we would go back to a four and have another attacking player on the pitch. Do you know what? In hindsight, I think even Marco Silva, might admit, maybe not publicly, but certainly behind the scenes, that he probably got that wrong. And I think that the fact that he changed it at half time shows that, he needed to kind of atone for what had happened in the first half. But yeah, it was a bit of a shock to see that. I wasn't so surprised to see Kearney start because I think we've all said before, Andreas is not an 8. He's just not an 8. He's really struggled in that position all season. And Kearney had one of the all-time great substitute appearances against Bournemouth the week before. I thought he might be rewarded. So that wasn't so much of a surprise. But yeah, certainly keeping the three at the back was. I think the only other thing to add was, on their team news, they had no Hutchinson, who's obviously quite an important player for them. So that was quite a positive. But it did make me wonder how we were gonna line up. Was it literally just going to be three centre backs, or was Bassi going to pull to left back, push Robinson up the pitch, which kind of happened? It just didn't quite work.
No, absolutely. I think you're bang on there. And I think when you look at Ipswich's previous games, they are very starved of possession. I think they must average around 30%. So for us to go with a back five, and as the game went on, which we'll get into, we just kind of tickled the ball across the back three and just couldn't make anything happen. But I guess, Sam, anything to add from yourself? Do you think it was negative? Did you think it was wrong? Was there anything you would have changed about that lineup?
Look, okay, I don't actually hate five at the back. I mean, it's not up there with it's not Sauron to me. It's fine. It's not the. I just was giving his face when I said that.
Sorry, I just got to grab my bingo card of films that Sam sneaks into podcasts. So Lord of the Rings is now checked off, as well as Shrek and others. But there you go.
Look, okay. I don't hate it as much as 27 Dresses, but it's because you know what? As a positive, I genuinely thought Anderson played really, really well, and I quite liked him in that real controlling central position. I thought that there was some positives there. I'm really trying to be devil's advocate here. But it just always, five at the back just always seems to kind of come at the sacrifice of us pushing forward, just because I feel that we just lose something in midfield, and that was really, really prevalent. And it just really undermined for me really good performances from, say, Wilson, because Wilson was he was so desperate all game yesterday, and I really felt for him because I think obviously Jimenez scored 2 goals, and there was quite a few good performances, but I really felt like Wilson was a standout, and I really felt that he was unlucky. And I think if he had a little bit more support in that midfield, we would probably be singing his praises in a different way. But it's not the worst case scenario for me. I understand it. And look, I think it just comes off the back of injuries, so I can't really hate Silva too much. That's me. That's my politician's answer on the subject. I genuinely don't hate it. I mean, look, we beat Chelsea with 5 at the back, so maybe it has a special place in my heart now. But yeah, I didn't hate it, but yeah, it clearly wasn't the right move.
Yeah, I think it's the game, isn't it? against Chelsea, where we're looking for that counter attack, we need to sort of soak up a lot of pressure and then get the fullbacks up the pitch and allows us to attack. I just think I think we tried it against Bournemouth as well as now Ipswich. It just doesn't fit the same game. At Bournemouth we were thinking, okay, it could work, and then as the game went on, we thought we need another body in midfield here just to shore us up, give us a bit more of an outlet. And I think a lot of the fans going into this game were saying, okay, we need that extra body in midfield, whether it be Pereira, who's a bit more of a defensive number 10, or Smith Rowe, who's just going to be that kind of player that just stays up the pitch alongside the striker. And then to see Kearney, Lukic in the back, and as well as the back five, it just seemed very kind of negative going forward. But, as the game kicked off, we started. Go on, Sam.
I just have a follow-up question for that. And I know you're actually coming up with a very beautifully constructed thing here, Skibby, but I don't care. I just want to ask the question. I'm just going to say it. I don't like Kearney and Lukic as a midfield pairing. I felt it was really slow and sluggish, and maybe that could just be because they didn't have the extra support in midfield, but I really didn't like that energy. I really didn't feel like that what the game needed. I would love to hear you guys' takes on that. If I think I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
Go ahead,
but
Dave.
I didn't like it.
Right. So I think it goes back to how we've lined up here. And as Skibby said, we knew Ipswich weren't going to have a lot of the ball. They were going to defend and then, have a low block for us to try and break down. And then they were going to try and counter using, Delap primarily to unsettle our defence, who, by the way, was exceptional. Break the bank, Fulham, because that would be the perfect striker.
He's a monster.
Absolutely. But so to put five at the back, you've almost got an extra player defensively that you don't need. So you've got less players that are on the right side of the pitch that can break the low block and find those balls through. So it just literally made no sense. What it did mean is that Kearney and Lukic ended up just having to pass it sideways all the time to try and find those gaps. And we normally have Robinson as the extra man. He kind of overlaps from fullback, but because he was pushed up so high, he was being picked up by the right back. So we just didn't have that normal outlet that we normally did. So it just kept going from side to side, Kearney to Lukic to side. And, Kearney came onto the pitch last weekend against Bournemouth, was absolutely exceptional. He didn't turn into a different player overnight. We just didn't have enough players around him to be able to break through that Ipswich defence. And that's a flaw in how we lined up. And that's why that had to be changed at half time. So I do agree, though, that it's not ideal, Kearney and Lukic. I have a problem with our midfield anyway, because I actually think that when we play a two, if Burge or Lukic are missing, we either have to play AP out of position where he struggled, or we have to bring in Kearney, who's clearly more impactful off the bench in this later stages of his career. So we are a midfielder light and we've got no real option. So we're trying to make the best of it. But I think the way we lined up was just really too defensive to give us the opportunity to break that low block in the first half. And it made everyone look a little bit poorer than they actually are.
Such a respectful answer.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, I think on paper, the way that we wanted the midfield to look was Robinson getting really high, so he becomes almost like our left winger, and Iwobi becoming that number 10, I guess, in that scenario. But the transition, I think, was just too slow. And I do think that's where Kearney does have a flaw, which is he gets a foot on the ball. He does a few sort of pirouette turns and to make space for himself. But by the time he's then settled on the ball, like Dave mentioned, Robinson's then marked out the game. Then Iwobi's already moved into the central, and their two defensive midfielders have picked him up, so he can't get the ball. He was coming really deep to try and get the ball, and then once you've kind of got Ipswich all settled, then the only way is to go either to Lukic or to Anderson, and I think that's just where we just weren't quick in the transition. And to be honest, this is something which we've said very often. I think Mary even brought it up a couple of pods ago, which was against Southampton, we were just so sluggish, just really slow. And I think that's just where our problem was in this sort of teams against, or when we play teams in the sort of the relegation fight, they are very quick to set themselves up and get behind. And then as soon as we've now tried to move the ball forward, we've got no space to move into because we've allowed them to reset. And Ipswich were really good at that. I think in the first half there was not many chances. I think Raul had a header straight at the goalkeeper, but we weren't really stretched at that point. And then out of kind of absolute chaos, we find ourselves 1-0 down, and I think the ball was clipped in, and Robinson's beaten to the header, comes off the bar. Bassey has a swing at it, completely all calamity, falls straight to the Ipswich attacker who slams it home, I think, off of Bassey's knee. I mean, I think it goes without saying that could have been avoided. But I think from that motion, was there anything, Dave, that jumped out at you from that passage of play where Fulham could have easily done better way before that's even happened? Or do you feel that, it's just one of those things, mistakes happen and, Bassey's just caught out, Anderson's out of position and just Diop's nowhere to be found?
I think that in the build-up play, I think the guy had too much time to put the ball into the box in the first place. He wasn't closed down quick enough. I can't remember who that was. I want to say Castagna, but I don't want to do him a disservice. So we'll come back to that. But yeah, I do think he had too much time. And then when the ball came into the box after it hit the bar, I think Bassey just panicked and he just fluffed the clearance. He may have thought he was under more pressure than he was, so he tried to clear it as quick as he could. And in the end, he just kind of passed it straight to their guy who had could shoot at straight at the goal. It ended up going back in off Bassey, didn't it? So it was. You'd like to think Bassey could have been a bit more composed in that situation. It might sound harsh, but I don't know. I'm just getting fed up of us conceding lots of goals. Maybe over the last few weeks, I just want the defence to be a bit more composed in those moments. And it does feel like a goal that, if it was a little bit more composed and just made proper contact with the ball and cleared it properly, it would have ended that moment in the game for Ipswich. And kind of like a reverse of the Bournemouth game, where I thought they were the better team first half and we kind of scored against a run of play. I do think that in this game, we were the team that were trying to find answers to break the low block and were pressing up that end of the pitch. And Ipswich didn't have too many chances in the first half that I can recall. I think that was their first real chance. So it was a bit frustrating to go into 1-0 down, but it did just highlight kind of the errors I think that we'd made, both as a lining up for the game, but also individually defending that moment. Yeah.
And just to notify on what you said, so it was Broadhead who got the ball in. It looks like Anderson is probably the closest to him. Lukic potentially could come across and close down. So Diop and Bassey are in the middle, looking after the two attackers there. But yeah, it's just all out of shape, all out of whack, and it's just a really ugly goal to concede. And it's really funny though, because I mean, I know that people love to have their scapegoats at Fulham, but somebody or a few around me were like, "What the hell is Diop doing?" And I've watched that goal probably about 10 times, and I can't see what they saw of what Diop did wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, he was there in the box, but that's about it. But I mean, if anyone, and I mean, I don't want to blame Game here, but I mean, Bassey's got to do better. I mean, he's got to hook it. He's on his favoured left foot, just anywhere. I mean, he had loads of time. Could have taken a touch, could have got it out of the stadium. But hey ho, that's where we are. Now we're going to go on to a bit more of a referee chat. So just before that goal happened, there was a touch from Jimenez into the path of Wilson. Wilson gets a touch on it, and Leif Davis absolutely wipes him out. Sam, your thoughts in terms of, has the referee got the call right in terms of a yellow card, and should it have been punishable? Should it have been gone to VAR and VAR had a bit more of a look at it? What were your takes on that foul? Which was the start of an absolute catastrophe.
Look, if nothing else, that's definitely VAR for me. I heard some, I think I heard Michael Owen at halftime just actually referred to Wilson as being clumsy and just kind of had like a weird bias against him, which was just the strangest comment I felt. And for me, it's I don't really get it. I felt that throughout the game there was some weird calls. I was very validated by seeing Silva just going ballistic on the sideline for what really felt like half the game. I feel that like he at least burst one blood vessel. Like, just look, I mean, I come on here weekly, but I never like claim to be a professional. I just claim to be somebody who loves like my team. So it's really hard for me to kind of really say with like a lot of chest why I feel like it's wrong. But for me, if nothing else, that is a clear and obvious, you have to check that, because he just kind of flattens him. And more so than anything, he flattens him with his foot. And as far as I'm aware, when it's close to studs up, that's at least warranting
minimum,
a VAR. Yeah. But again, you guys know more about this than I do, so I'd kind of prefer to hear your take on it. I'm just an opinion with a microphone.
When I was watching it, I thought there was more defenders back than there was, having seen the highlights. I could see a lot of pink shirts on the left-hand side, so I didn't even think it was last man at the as watching. But we've got a poor angle of that being in the Hammersmith end, and it was happened at the other side and towards the Putney end. And but you could tell by the reaction of the players that they all felt frustrated that they felt he was last man. Having seen it, the highlights of it, he's last man. Wilson's running through on goal. That the other defender that's to the left-hand side is never catching Wilson in that situation. Wilson's running at full pelt. He's taken the ball past the defender and he's in on goal. And referee's given a yellow card, which is surprising really, because he's in a better position than we were. He should be able to see that Wilson's clear on goal, but as always happens, he bottles the decision, and VAR will correct him if he's wrong. VAR then have a look at it and decide to back the referee, not doing their job really. So it's a frustrating one really. I can see why the guys were so upset, because we've had a few moments like that go against us, and in a difficult half like that, where we weren't breaking through very often, the team's getting quite frustrated. That is an opportunity really to if they go to 10 men, and we're going to have a much better chance of winning that game. So you can see why everyone erupted as the way they did, and ultimately I think they got the decision wrong.
Yeah, you're quite right. And I think for me, like Jim has put in the chat, it's very similar to Wilson at Liverpool. If anything, I think the touch and the pace that Wilson is running at is actually more favourable of Wilson in this scenario. That he's taken the touch onto his strongest left foot. He's in the centre of the goal. The pace that he's running at, I don't think that the defender who is level with is going to catch him. And I just think that they've had a bit of a bottle there. I think that for me was a very clear and obvious red card for me, and a mistake from the ref being the yellow. Therefore, it should be looked at. But I mean, interestingly enough, that was still one of his kind of benefit of the doubt decisions, where as the game went on, and I don't know whether you were the same, Dave, but it just felt like even throw-ins, they didn't know what they were doing. There was times where I saw in the first half, like Raul try and take a touch, and he'd go straight out of play, really heavy touch, and he's given the throw to us, and you're thinking, okay, that's a bit strange. And then vice versa, he was just getting even the real basics. It's almost like he was completely rattled. I don't know what his experience is in the league, but it doesn't seem to be a strong one. And I think that the comments of Marco saying it wasn't a Premier League referee's performance is quite warranted. It did give me flashbacks back to the Championship when it was absolutely chaotic and just tragic. But it was just, he lost all kind of control of the game. And like we were sort of saying earlier, when we want to move in a bit more of a quicker transition to actually make good attacking moments for ourselves, we found ourselves in that scenario and we were punished for it. They brought down our attacker in the last man situation and nothing was picked up. But hey, and then you know what it's like. as soon as a couple of throw-ins go the wrong way, and especially that decision, the fans are instantly on his back. Therefore, it's in his mind that he's just not going to have a good performance after that. So, do you think, Dave, that the warranted abuse, I guess, from the Fulham fans then sort of played a big impact into later game, as we will get there?
Interesting. Possibly. I think that you're right. I forgot about the throw-ins, actually. There was some crazy
awful
throw-ins. Yeah, bizarre. And the linesman wasn't helping either, because he wasn't putting his flag up until he referee gave the decision. So yeah, that was a bit bizarre. I thought it wasn't just the Wilson last man tackle, though. I remember there was 2 occasions where Sasa Lukic intercepted players, and we were in really good positions once he had, and he gave, free kicks. And I think that's really where the frustration started to build, because they were opportunities for us to actually kind of, intercept, break, and create a chance. And these are the 50-50s that Silva said that were going against us, in that first half. So yeah, the crowd was certainly frustrated. I think the players were really frustrated. It will probably get to it in the second half. Potentially we crossed the line a little bit, we'll come back to that when we touch on the second half. But and this is one of those refs, I think, as well. He likes it to be about him. He likes to, really kind of, stop the game a lot, and, make sure, talk to everyone, and you just make a big spectacle about, I'm the ref and I'm in charge. Just like those refs that just blend, you don't even notice them. That's the ref that I'm looking for. But, unfortunately, you have these personalities in the referee world who really let it down for the rest of them, I think.
I kind of just don't really believe in refs as a concept. Honestly, okay. So I get it from like a romantic point of view. I quite like it, but the reality is humans aren't logical creatures. We're emotional creatures, and we're very susceptible to the elements around us. He might be arguing with his wife. He might not like his kid. He might just have had like a bad day. Maybe he's got a hangnail. I don't know, but he just made bad decisions. And it didn't seem like he was going to make better ones. And I'm just saying, AI or a robot doesn't have that. So, I'm not sure how you get ChatGPT involved in the Premier League, but I'm just saying, for some scenarios, it might not necessarily be the worst thing, especially when you just want clear, concise opinions and structure.
Well, I mean,
but it ruins the romanticism of the game. So it's like, of course, it's never going to happen. But anyway,
would be fun to see a robot. I mean, it would be that fun. Sounds
a little Wally. I'd love that.
Little Wally. Wheels, or what do you envision here?
Okay. This is such. I mean, it would have to be the floaty one in Wally. I think Eva.
Right.
It would have to be Eva. Oh, Eva in Premier League.
Okay.
Eve? It's
I think you're right.
Yeah, if that was just had her in team colors, it'd be amazing.
Team color, okay.
I'd have to vouch for Skynet. No one's surrounding the ref when you got the Terminator on pitch, are they? They step out of line, just
very good call. Yeah.
But it's funny though. You talk about that. It's the way we're going, Sam, because my rant on the last pod was refs don't have to make decisions anymore. They can just blow the whistle and then go, right, I'm waiting. I'm going to wait until I make a decision. So it is the way we're going, because they're too reliant on it, and I don't like it, but it's just horrendous. But, there was one other moment in the first half, which was a bit of a loose one, which was, I think the ball was bobbling around, Wilson trying to get on a goal, and I think Castagna gets a foot on the ball, and he does get cleaned, in my opinion. But I don't even remember that going to VAR and they didn't say a VAR check was going on, but it was probably the same amount of contact for me as the actual Ipswich one, which didn't need VAR interjection because he already gave it. But anyway, we'll get into that now. So second half comes in. Diop is pulled for Smith Rowe. And you know what? I'm going to counter argue Sam's point. I thought Anderson was actually pretty poor. I didn't think he was very good. I thought Diop, out of the two, was probably the most suited for the game. And I think, like we said, Delap was an absolute monster. Hands up, I thought he was a bit of a skinny winger, bit tricky, good on the counter, gets a few goals. But oh my word, is he a strong boy? He's a big lad as well. And the way that he was in the first half, he was bringing the ball down, snatching out the air, holding it up, bringing others into play, and then being able to run at our players at pace and skill, I thought was phenomenal. I think he is a great player. So definitely one that we should keep an eye on. But going into that second half, in my opinion, I thought if we're going to stick with that back four ideology and basically bring on Smith Rowe, I would have pulled Anderson. I think Diop and Bassi are much more physical, probably, which would have suited taking on Delap. But unfortunately, Anderson was pulled for Smith Rowe. But yeah, Sam.
Do you know what, actually? I don't disagree with you, especially in the second half. I just liked what Anderson was doing in the first half, but I actually don't disagree, because in the second half, I felt like, one, I just didn't notice him. I quite liked him in that creative centre back position, if you can even call it that. If anything, he was probably playing more of just like down midfield. But no, I don't actually think you're wrong. I think it probably would have been better suited to have Diop there, because in the second half, I really didn't notice Anderson that much. So yeah, I fully take that.
I would the only thing I would say is I don't personally think this formation suits Anderson, and certainly not the way he was used on Saturday, being the man to kind of pressure Delap. Out of the three centre backs that we had on the pitch, he's probably less suited for that. Much rather have seen Diop be the person to press Delap or Bassi than Anderson. Really, you want Anderson freed up in a bit of space so he can, assist bringing the ball forward and do his long diagonal passes, which he can still do to an extent, but it's much easier for him when he's on the right side of the pitch, and he can collect the ball either from Leno or from one of for the other centre back. When he's in the middle, I think that it kind of limits his movement and his ability. So I think that he's out of position in all honesty, and I think that's why he kind of struggled, and he was asked to do a role that really I don't think he was suited for. So the second half, when we went back to the back four, personally don't think he played too badly in the second half. He kind of, as Sam said, he didn't really stand out. But yeah, I just think that he was used wrong in the first half, and as a result, we saw a pretty kind of mediocre performance.
Yeah, I kind of get that, and I think on Nathaniel Josh is joining us on X, watching on X. So hey Nathaniel, thanks for joining. He says that Anderson looked very slow, getting turned too easily. We just need to bin off the back five. That's all we need. And I completely agree. I think he looked slow, sluggish, especially against Delap, where I mentioned he was in for a bit of a physical battle. But then as soon as the ball was on the deck and Delap was running at him, he still didn't look comfortable for me. And there was a couple of times where I just thought that if you were in that physical battle with Diop, I think he's not snatching out the air as easily as he was. That's the only thing there. But I think that happened. We move on. Smith Rowe introduced. And I think, Dave, coming to you, Smith Rowe obviously has come under a bit of scrutiny in the last couple of months, I would say. It's not been a great time as of late. How do you think that he performed in his sort of cameo coming on in his sort of normal role, I would say, is trying to be that number 10 for us?
If you'd asked me at 5 o'clock yesterday, you'd got a very different answer from what you're getting now. 5 o'clock yesterday after the game, I don't think I'd appreciated that he'd been kind of, pivotal in the two moments that led to the penalties. I hadn't recognised that really, and all I'd kind of seen is kind of him come onto the pitch and do what he's been doing in games before he got injured, which was kind of just play safe passes side to side and not really kind of impact the attacks. I'm desperate to see him kind of carry the ball a bit more and try and get in behind and all of those kind of things I think we saw in the first few games of the season in little spells. So I was kind of disappointed with his performance coming right after the game. Having watched it back, I think and thought about it, he's a player that has been injured. I think first he's coming into a game where we're losing against a team who are playing a low block, which is notoriously difficult to break down. He was trying to get on the ball, knock it about, get into the game. And actually, when I look back at the 2 penalties that we got, it's through forward passes from Smith Rowe that lead to those moments. So he's given the ball to Harry Wilson for that first penalty, which is a good ball, actually. And then an even better ball for Raul Jimenez, who peeled away to the right-hand side in the last minute for the second penalty. And I think, those are 2 good bits of, two great balls, basically, that have led to quite important moments in the game. So I think reflecting on it, I'm not going to be too hard on Smith Rowe. I do still want to see more from him, right?
Yeah.
But I do think he has just got back from injury. We've got to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt. And to say he's not impacted the game, I think in hindsight was probably wrong of me. And, now I've looked at it, I think that he's actually been involved in 2 quite key moments. So, yeah, make of that what you will. But it's that's Smith Rowe at the moment.
You are right. He's a weirdly subversive player because you can tell he has exceptional vision, and you can tell that he's reading the game at all times and has an awareness of everything that's going on. Have you ever seen like Berbatov talk about this in just various goals? I've seen a couple of highlights recently of Berbatov talking about how he literally just trundles around, but he's like, well, I know if I pass to them, I know exactly what they're going to do. And I know that they're there, and I know Nani will do this. So then I just need to walk here. And then when I walk there, I get the goal. I can see that Smith Rowe has that because he was, as you said, was really, really good at just doing some really, really key 1-2s and a brilliant cross to Jimenez. So I'm not sure if it's a confidence thing. And let's face it, we've only had him for how many months now? 4 maybe months, 5, yeah. 4 maybe. So he's still very, very much a work in progress, and we've seen some really, really important glimpses from him. But he's by no means the package that we should be expecting him to be. I mean, think about how long we've given Sasa Lukic. And also Jimenez as well, to be fair, because when we first got Jimenez, there was a couple of points where we were looking to get the stakes out for him because we were so goddamn frustrated. I think his time will come. As you said, he's come off injury. I didn't hate the performance, but yeah, there is something, and I can see your finger hit it.
Yeah, it was just one quick thing to add as well. I also don't think he's the kind of player we need, that would respond well if the crowd get on his back. He looks like a player that needs love. You look at Andreas Pereira, and he's had a lot of stick from the fans, but actually, I think in the last couple of games, his response has been quite good. He's been looked quite committed, and he's been doing and saying all the right things, to try and rebuild the relationship. So he's taken that, negativity and tried to turn it round. Whereas I think Smith Rowe would just go into himself. He's introvert, and he'd probably, be less effective. So I don't want to encourage him kind of a scapegoat mentality on Smith Rowe for why things aren't going well. I think he's a player that needs to be supported to get the best out of him.
It's such a fantastic point as well, because if you compare it to somebody like Harry Wilson, who because I fully wrote Harry Wilson off at the start of the season. I thought we were going to get rid of him, and he's come back with so much tenacity and just so much I'm going to prove you wrong just off the back of so much criticism. But I 100% agree. I don't think Smith Rowe is that sort of player, and you can never really gauge what a player needs totally just off the back of knowing them for such a short period of time. But I think you're dead on the money there.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, straight back to Sam's point, I wrote off Wilson, Lukic in the sort of pre-season pods, and I said that they would probably be sold. And what do I know? They're now 2 of our best players. So I do think that the Marco Silva way takes time. And it doesn't also help that, he's got a different striker in front of him every week. He's got, a different winger. He was sort of had Adama. He had Reece Nelson, Iwobi. It's just nothing but around him is consistent at the moment, especially when according to the fee that we paid and the way that Marco has talked about him, he is going to be that player that we're going to build around. So it doesn't help that, the two centre mids also change behind him. So there needs some consistency, but he also needs to really make a statement. And I do think that will take time, and hopefully we'll start to see that at least in this half of the season. But you're quite right. But no, so we had two more changes. A very interesting change where Iwobi was taken off for Muniz. I think Raul then went onto the wing. And I believe Andreas Pereira entered the fray, so for Tom Kearney. And like Dave said, we tried to get the ball forward a bit better. The ball came from Smith Rowe. Wilson makes his diagonal run into the box as he normally does, and he's tripped quite savagely right under the referee's nose, and he waves play on. Very much in his feeling of, I don't need to make a decision. But I saw it from, I was sitting in H6, like a very clear studs onto the back of the calf that makes him clip his ankles. And, the ball trickles out for, I think it's a goal kick. And then frustration begins. He runs at the referee, calls him all the things under the sun. I think the word cheat is thrown around. It's not great. It's not a great look, but also I get it because it's such an awful, awful refereeing decision. And if you think about competitions where there aren't VAR and he doesn't give that, he's relegated instantly, like down to Championship League One, because that is the most disgraceful miss by a referee. And I don't think VAR saving the day should allow him to get away with it personally, because when you look at this challenge, not even in slow motion, but in real time, it's exactly the same as Tom Kearney in the Spurs game. The studs on the back of the calf goes down his ankle. I think if Wilson stays down and holds his ankle a little bit, I reckon VAR are checking for a red there. Morsey's very lucky, in my opinion. But the fact that the ref needs VAR's intrusion there to give the penalty, it's just scandalous. I don't know, Sam, if you've got any more to say on that, but I just can't with this man, I swear.
No, it's absolutely filthy. I mean, okay, to be honest, like the last 15 minutes was completely insane. I mean, you already touched on Muniz coming on. Formation wise, I had no idea what was going on, and the game was just going crazy from that point onwards. And I was like, structure's gone out the window. This is Fight Club. I mean, makes for good television. Let's call it what it is. But no, for me, that's a straight red card. I can't really talk too much about it because I just think it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm glad that it did kind of get overturned in a sense. I'm glad that I don't know who was screaming in his ear, just being like, you need to fix this, but somebody got that right. One thing that we actually haven't picked up on is, I'm not sure if you guys remember it, but this was actually the first time I ever saw like Robinson really in kind of like a captain role, because I'm not sure if it was picked up on, I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but Robinson was just throwing people away, just being like,
yeah,
fuck off, I'm having this conversation. And that was like the first time I felt, he is my guy now. He is a man. Like, he is taking charge. And if anyone's going to scream at the referee, it's going to be him. And he's just throwing everybody away. And it was fantastic. I absolutely loved that, because I've never really seen Robinson in that light before. But just to see him, I mean, talk about composure and talk about just being like, I'm strength, I'm the guy. I've loved Robinson at the moment. I could not love him more. But yeah, I'm really glad that at least he took charge of that moment. And I'm not sure if he said anything to press onto the ref, but really that's, I mean, in all the craziness, I just can't not highlight that point, because it was awesome to see for me.
He was captain for all of 4 minutes.
Because
Tom Kenny came off, but it was, I mean, he must have been looking like, oh Christ, now I've got to deal with this. But yeah, but no, you're quite right. It was good of him. But I mean, we talked about the penalty, Dave. But I mean, do you think there should have been a more severe punishment, or do you think I'm just pulling that out of my ass.
No, I don't think I hadn't even thought about the fact that the player should have been sent off. If I'm going to be completely honest, I remember at the time obviously there's huge appeal from fans and players, and the referee's got a really good view of it, so he should be given that penalty. Simple as. But the guy's a knobhead, so what do you expect? He's going to get it another thing wrong. In terms of the timing of that and the subs, I actually thought the subs created. It was chaos. It was chaotic, but it actually kind of worked. It was bizarre. He threw all these attackers on in kind of some sort of bizarre formation that no one could quite work out, but it actually created more openings for us. It also left us a bit vulnerable at the back on the counter, but it did kind of help us, which we then found out. But and actually, just before we move on, I think the way we'd started the second half wasn't so good again. And Ipswich put pressure on us, and we've just seen that far too often this season, where we just don't come out, especially at home, but we don't come out in the second half. And we've really got to find a solution for that. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be something mental, but we've got a real issue there. So the subs actually created the chaos that we kind of needed to create some more opportunities. This was the one that got us back in the game. Yeah, I mean, you just feel pretty confident when Rao steps up, don't you? From the spot.
Penalty.
But you just kind of feel that he's going to score. I didn't really.
With Dave. I am with Dave.
It was a 100% record, isn't it?
Yeah, 10 in 10, I believe, in the Premier League, and I think I just kind of thought, yeah, this is 1-1 now, and yeah, he, as you say, maybe not the best penalty, but it goes in and gets us back in the game momentarily.
But there was actually a positive as well from that I saw Muniz walk up to Raul, and I was thinking, oh, brilliant. They're all going to fight over the ball. But he didn't. He basically took him by the head and was just like, you got this, and gave him a hug and then walked away.
Lovely.
That's what we want.
He's so lovely.
This is what we want. And I was like, this is exactly what we need in the club. No fighting over the ball. He's a penalty taker. Fantastic. And I think that was quite nice. But anyway, party poppers at the ready, boys. We broke a record, a Premier League record.
Yay!
Sam, do you know what record we broke?
Is it unbeaten?
No.
Oh no, it's Jimenez. Wait, is it Jimenez?
No, not quite.
Ooh.
It was the quickest time between two penalties given in the Premier League.
Wow.
Because Ipswich went all the way down the other end, and the slightest touch of Castagna, Delap goes down like he's broken his leg, and penalty given. And VAR wasn't involved in that decision. He went straight to the spot, no hesitation, whereas Wilson almost loses his Achilles compared to, I think, Castagna might scuff his toe as he went to clear the ball, and Delap goes down like he's just been absolutely shot. But yeah, I think it was around 70 seconds, if that. I may have to get that up.
Right. This goes back to what I was saying before. Like, we're not logical creatures, we're emotional creatures. And it literally felt like to me, well, I've given them one, so I'm going to give you one. Which it really did feel like that, and which for me is insane. Sorry, go on. Oh, that
Dave,
was my
any
point.
thoughts on the...
Oh, sorry, you asking me?
No, that's fine. No. I was just going to say, any thoughts on that penalty, I guess, and that scenario?
In the stand, when that went down, I said penalty. I blurted it out. Having seen it back, it looks pretty soft, but and I can't really see an angle that shows me that there's a lot of contact there at all. Marcus Hill didn't seem to moan about it after the game, so but your point's right on the fact that the ref felt pretty confident to give that one, but was less sure about the more obvious one, which was Harry Wilson, slightly earlier, and that was probably the story of the game for that ref. But it's disappointing just getting back into the game and then all of a sudden conceding. And a bit like Rao, I didn't really have any doubts when Delap stepped up. He just looks. I just thought he's definitely going to score this. I mean, it's not only that Leno doesn't have a great record at penalties; it's just you've got a confident striker there that's had a good game, and I'd have been very surprised if Leonard managed to keep that out.
I hate to
even
admit
if he got a hand to it, he would have followed it in. He hit it so well.
It is ridiculous. That was filthy. That was actually filthy.
No, I mean, yeah. So there was 2 minutes and 44 seconds between our penalty being converted to their penalty being given, and that is now a new Premier League record. So, up the Fulham Premier League record holders. Well, us and Ipswich. It's joint, I suppose. Yeah. But
Raul Jimenez is also the highest scoring Mexican in the Premier League. So I mean, one cancels out the other. So
it does indeed. It does indeed. But that's it was soft, as you say. It was soft, but a well converted penalty. But at that moment as well, I don't know about you, Dave, but we felt rattled after that penalty went in. I think Ipswich then got on the ball. I think they rattled the post. It was just didn't look, and we just didn't look like we were getting back into the game. And if anyone was going to come out with the 3 points, it kind of looked like Ipswich at this point, because I think it was a joint, factors, which was the formation when all these attacking players had come on. I believe we added a Adama Traore for no reason. I mean,
we took Lukic off.
I suppose.
We took Lukic
off.
Yeah.
So we literally had a whole bank of wingers in the centre of the park, and it was just chaos. But it didn't work. But then, as we found out in like the 90th minute, having about 10 attackers on the field does pay off when you get bodies in the box. And like you say, fantastic ball from Smith Rowe. And to be honest, I'll have to watch it back, but I do think that was the only thing he did, in my opinion. But we will see. I may change my opinion, but fantastic outside the boot ball over to Raul, and Raul does does the rest really. Stupid. I mean, how livid would you be, Dave, if that was Bassi or Diop in the 91st minute when you're trying to cling on for fighting relegation and they leave a foot in like that? You'd be fuming, wouldn't you?
You would. I think it was just clumsy from Leif Davis, who I didn't think had a very good game. Everyone was raving about him, so I thought I'd keep an eye on his performance. And I mentioned it in the group, as impressed as I was with the lap, I was not very impressed at all with Leif Davis, who I think had a pretty poor afternoon defensively. And even Adama, when Adama came on, he looked a bit like he'd never played football for the first 5 minutes. He just couldn't get the ball under control. But by the end of it, he was just walking round Leif Davis as if he wasn't there. And I was like, oh my goodness, I thought this guy was supposed to be headed for the top. But going back to the penalty, clumsy. Raul played for it, very clever, because when he cut back inside, I thought he was going to shoot. And then when he took an extra touch, I thought, he knows what he's doing here. He knows that Leif Davis is going to dive in and he's going to get the contact, which is what happened. And just before we move on from that as well, I actually think we haven't mentioned Mooney's impact off the bench, because probably I think the two best performing players yesterday were actually Raul and Muniz. Raul, I thought, had a pretty good game overall, worked really, really hard, and obviously was very clinical from the penalty spot. But I thought Mooney's was excellent when he came on. He just, it really helped us kind of create chances, having him able to kind of beat the defenders physically, whether that be in the air or, to bring the ball forward. And I thought, so just wanted to point that out, that in the chaos, there was actually two pretty good performances in there. Another very good penalty from Raul. This one was a very good penalty from Raul. These were not going to save those ones. So delighted to get the point in that circumstance. But funny old game.
Honestly, we can talk about like we can go 5 at the back. I understand 5 at the back, but I'm almost at the point now where can we just do 2 up front with Jimenez and Muniz, because they get along so well. I just want to see them together, because they actually, I mean, how rare is it that you actually see 2 strikers who are actually of pretty decent quality actually work with each other and directly support each other? It just doesn't happen. And maybe it could completely go bust. Maybe it could be a terrible idea. But if we're going to try 5 at the back, we might as well try that as well at some point. That's just one person's opinion, though.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? Growing up in the sort of 90s, early 2000s football, I'm all for it. Raul and Muniz could definitely be the next, Andy Cole and Dwight York. But, it's not the way of modern football. So unfortunately, I mean, I'm all with you. I'd love it. But I think Mooney's had a great game when he came off the bench. Does what he always does. He makes things happen. I think for the first penalty, he took an awful whack in the face, which again, you think, that could have been looked at as very dangerous. Like, do you need Muniz to be knocked unconscious for it to be deemed as a dangerous high foot? I just don't get it. But like I said, he wants it all about him. And to be fair, in that instance, there was a lot going on with the penalty. Lots of high attention. I don't think they even probably looked at that piece. But hey ho, I mean, it is what it is. But 2-2 draw. I don't think many people expected a draw. I think we were all quite optimistic going into this game, especially given Ipswich. It was like conservative optimism. We knew that Ipswich had beaten Chelsea. We knew that they were playing quite well. They didn't leak a lot of goals, but we did think we could have one over on them. Go on, Sam.
My question to the both of you actually is this a 0.1 or potentially we've missed 2 points that we could have got? How do you guys?
Lost
feel
2
like-
points.
Even hesitate.
Okay.
We gifted them the
Yeah.
goals. Apart from them hitting the post, I think was probably the closest they came. But I can't think of anything else where, Leno. He made a good save to his left. I remember.
Oh, that was a great save.
That was a fantastic save.
Yeah.
Um,
I can't remember who hit it.
again-
Was it Schmudix hit that as well? Did
I think
he?
it was
That was
Smolix, yeah.
what a great save that was. That really that
That
would
was
have been
again where
3-1.
we were right on the back. That was when we were on the back foot again.
Yeah.
So Leno pulling up trumps again, but I think for me, it's definitely 2 points lost in a way that we got set up wrong. We didn't need 5 at the back. They were going to sit back, so we talked about that. But I also think that their first goal was an absolute gift, and their second being a penalty, again, absolute gift. So we should have won that game. I didn't see enough from Ipswich as a team that they're going to be good enough to beat the drop. But I do think that they've got an absolute player into lap, and as long as they can keep him fit and healthy, they've got a good chance. But as soon as he potentially has fatigue issues or picks up an injury, they're in a lot of trouble. But yeah, for me, it was definitely 2 points dropped. Dave?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we should be winning that game, and I think you're right. I think if we'd have lined up with a 4 at the back and an extra man in midfield, we might have had more chances to unlock the low block in the first half, and we might have won the game. So, I don't take no pleasure in criticising Marco Silva, and he is a genius. But I just think he made in my opinion, didn't quite get it right in the first half in how we lined up. So but. Yeah, it's too many draws. This is the problem, I think. It's
I was going to
segue
to that.
Were you going to segue to that?
I was going to segue to the draws.
quiet.
But go ahead, you go. You go. I mean,
Yeah.
draws, man. We're drawing too many now. It's got to be. Because, so to you, Dave, then, when we were drawing to Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, great. I think that is exactly what we expected. That's optimistic, right? Going to Anfield and picking up a point. But also in the same run of games, picking up a point against Southampton, Bournemouth, loosely, and Ipswich, not so good. I mean, we are drawing too many games and we can't carry on this way, right? We've got to start turning these draws into wins.
Yeah, it's missed opportunities. But then again, and actually even some of those draws that you mentioned against Spurs and Liverpool where, we'd have taken a point. We're pleased we got a point, but really we should have won those games with a better team. So we've drawn too many, but we can't get too carried away, and we've still got 30 points from 20 games, and we've done really well. We're unbeaten since November, right? Is it November since we lost to Wolves? Is that the last time we lost?
Yep.
Blimey. So it's if we could just if we didn't make those little errors at the back and concede goals the way we do, if we could just be a little bit more clinical sometimes, but all in all, I think we could be in a lot worse position. I think people are a bit frustrated by the draw to Southampton, the draw to Ipswich, and now the kind of European excitement is kind of dying a little bit. And it's still early days. There's still half a season to play. That can all change, especially with the run of games coming. But we can all see that there's improvements that we need to make, right? there's improvements that we need to make to really be a proper European ready team, I think. So yeah, we'll see how we get on the next few.
Yeah, and Steve made a great point. No Mary on this pod, therefore we could be in for a bit of a torrid time against Watford coming up. But hopefully we may be able to get a cameo for the preview. So watch this space.
I will just say, just pop like a nice little bow on it. At the end of the day, it's about getting points, and I understand that like we need as many wins as physically possible, but points for me are still points, and I will still take them wherever I can get. You can't build a house without a lot of draws. It's just you need those things. You need those things, and it's not the end of the world. And to be fair, we're at least still scoring goals. It's way more egregious to me if we're just like grinding out like nil. It's like a Southampton where it's a 0-0. That should never, ever, ever happen. And we have been in seasons before when that has been happening quite a lot, and we just know that we're not going to score, or if we do score, it's a surprise. At the moment, our scoring is pretty consistent. We just need to tighten up that defense for me. And I'm confident that can actually happen because, I mean, we've kind of seen we've seen enough that there is a formula there that needs time to like set in and maybe a little bit more depth. But I am confident that the pieces will fall together. Hopefully.
Sam, one of those pieces as well is, I think, Sander Berger. And
I agree.
God, I can't wait till we get him back because I just think, you know, if we can kind of embed a midfield of him and Lukic, I think they would give the back four a bit more protection.
Yeah.
That just feels like when he's back, I think we can maybe kick on. At the moment, when, you know, the midfield's not quite got the right balance, no matter what partnership we put in place. So I'm just fingers crossed Sander Berge comes back soon, or even better, we bring in a really strong number 8, which would be quite exciting. But I'm not sure we will. But you never know.
Time will tell. But yeah, I mean, to second that point, we've got more draws than a morgue at the moment. I don't like it. It's just, especially when I think that we should be. My theory is win at home, draw away, and I'm happy with that. And I get it that there's going to be games against the big or the classic Big Six. They're not the 6 anymore, but you know, the Anfields, the Old Traffords, those sort of games you expect to lose. Man City coming to the Cottage, Arsenal coming to the Cottage. You can't expect to lose those. A point is fantastic, but as soon as you start drawing against Southampton, West Ham, Bournemouth, you know, these teams that we realistically should be beating, I start to get a bit concerned, and I do think that if we don't figure out a formula soon, then we are going to be back into 12th place again. I don't fear relegation, but I do fear 12th place. I feel that more than relegation. I don't want 12th again. I want something else. But it's going to be a long half season. We'll see if we can combat that, but anything but 12th. That's all.
Yeah, I can't do 12th. I cannot do 12th again. That drove me insane. That actually drove me insane.
After the first half of the season, I'd be really disappointed if we fell outside the top 10 now. I get that.
Yeah.
I totally get that. But I'm also kind of thinking, I'm not quite sure we're ready for Europe. I think that if we were in Europe this season, our league form would really have struggled. So maybe we were kind of getting a little bit excited and ahead of ourselves with that talk. And actually maybe a year just finishing, 8th, 9th, 10th is really good, and we should be quite thankful for that, and gives us another great platform to build from next summer. We're in a great position with FFP, and we've got funds that we can spend. So I think, I just want us to kind of keep being competitive.
My only caveat to that is getting into Europe attracts better players. And I really want us to get into that upper echelon. I mean, Aston Villa is the best example of this. I mean, 6 years ago, Aston Villa aren't signing Yuri Tielemans. That just doesn't happen. I mean, they're actually at a point now where lots of players are looking to them as a club that they can actually play European football in. And I think that can be us. And I want that to be us.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think the only way that you can do that is at least getting, even if you're not ready, sometimes you literally just have to kind of do it. Like you have to do it anxious, you have to do it scared, you have to do it sick. You just have to do it. And I think we just have to get there and then kind of figure it out. And
Yeah.
I would rather actually get there first, figure it out, because that's guaranteed money, because that's sponsorships, and then that's guaranteed financial investment. And not only that as well, we have a good selling point with players with Marco Silva. We have the best selling point that we're probably going to have in a very, very long time if we can get into European positions.
Yeah, great point.
It's a double-edged sword, though, as well. I think.
Oh, of course.
I mean, it's a really poor example, and I know Dave's going to scoff at this, but he's the only one who's talked about their ambitions. But Andreas Pereira says he wants to play in Europe. Therefore, clubs are now having a chat with him, Marseille being one of them, having a look at him. But that aside, you're not qualifying for Europe. You do have a risk of losing your best players. And I do think that, we come into the summer and we haven't got Europe, and there's been talks around Anderson potentially going to Juventus, or I think Spurs were in the hunt as well. I can see Robinson being picked up by a big team. We've talked about that for potentially a European giant. I mean, if we don't qualify for Europe, we do have a problem where we do start to potentially lose players who have those ambitions of wanting to play in Europe. So, I mean, Sander Berger, I reckon, once he's settled, I think he could be one of those that clubs start looking at. Like, he could fill in the midfield of probably some big, maybe not in England, but some big teams in Europe. And I think that's the risk you run of, if you tell them it's, oh yeah, maybe next year, then they'll go, well, I'm not getting any younger, therefore I want to play in Europe now while I'm in my prime. And you do have a chance of losing those players, which I think is one thing to think about. But I do get your point that the squad's it's not thick enough right now. We need a much more squad depth to be able to compete in Europe.
Look, some great points made there. Totally accept those. And I do think maybe when Burge is back, as we spoke about, we might actually start looking, picking up some bigger wins and getting back on the right track. But at the moment, it looks like we're just we had this great start and we have been unbeaten, but those draws have not, cruise control. Those draws have not really taken us up the table. And now we're kind of, ninth? Is that where we are? And as I said, I don't think that's the end of the world, but you've made some great points about why we should really aspire to do more.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. I mean, a game spoiled by the ref, I would say, but also we've got ourselves to blame. I don't think we can, I think in summary, we can't sit here and say, oh, the ref did that, the ref did this. I mean, we can, but healthily, I think it's better to take off those black and white tinted specs and think, we could have done better, we should have done better. And fundamentally, we should have had that game in our own hands rather than relying on the ref to win it for us. So I think that's the conclusion of that one. But we got a break. Well, not really, but we do. We have a week off, I guess, but Watford coming up in the FA Cup. So I imagine we'll be doing a preview later on this week. But yeah, Sam, Dave, thank you very much for your time today. Any final points from you guys?
Well, I have one final point, and because we have a lot of people in the live and we've got a lot of people in the comments, I just want to say that my dad, the co-founder, is a little bit poorly at the moment, and I've come here, and Dave has come here, and Skibby's come here with a lot of love for him. So any love that you can express, send our way. Do it on Twitter, do it on Discord. But literally, if you could just slam him with love right now, because he loves the community. He needs the community. If anything, he should be here right now. I'm really here because I just want to say that I love my dad as much as I love Skibby. And actually, I love my dad more than I love you guys. I'm sorry. That's just, he
understandable.
He's
perfectly reasonable.
He's literally the reason I exist. There's very few people I could say that about. But yeah, just throw all your love towards Elton because I know he'd appreciate it. And I like to think that he's either blushing right now or just very, very annoyed that I've brought this up. And either way, that makes me happy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hope you get well soon, Elton. And big love to the Barense family. There you go.
It's Barense.
Barense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Dave, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, get well soon, Elton. We miss you. We need you back on this pod. All right. So do what you need to do. Get better. Get back on here ASAP. And only last point for me. First time I'd actually gone into the Riverside after the game.
Oh yeah.
Yesterday, and it was a lot better than I was expecting. I remember everyone was still saying, "Oh, it's all chipboards and things like that." Well, pretty nice bar, and drinks were. I mean, I bought. My mum was there, and a few others, and I bought a round of about 2 wines, 3 beers, and it was like 15 quid. And I was like, "It's ridiculous. this is great. We should come here after every game." And then even they bring out a player, don't they, in the Riverside area. Andreas Pereira came out. You'd have been over the moon, Skippy. Yeah, Andreas came out, did a little couple of minutes with Ivan Berry. So yeah, it's excellent round about there. Thoroughly recommend going. And also, just last point on that: don't go out of the ground and go and queue up again on the river. Just walk around there from wherever you're sitting in the stadium, because otherwise you're going to have to queue to get in. And that, for some reason they don't let you in until 20 minutes after the game's ended. So stay in the stadium. Is my recommendation.
Pro tip.
Yeah,
perfect.
That's all.
Well,
That's
there
all.
you go. Dave on the payroll for the Riverside stand. I'm imagining here for that amazing plug there. But
I want to get you boys sponsorships. I want to get.
Yeah, so got to go. Tony's calling me. Got to go. But no. No, yeah, we just said the Riverside's fantastic. We just said that. It's fine. No, all good. No, guys, I really thank you for your time. Oh, go.
Sorry, I just want to say one more thing. I've noticed it on the last couple of pods that we do. We always go, Marco Silva, he's a genius. Marco Silva, this is it. Like, he's listening to this, and I love the fact that if he is listening to this, what's up, brother? I also like paella.
Fair enough. Well, there you go. Well, on that bombshell, no, but guys, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you, everyone in the comments and everyone who's been joining in. Oh, we just hit a ton. Brilliant. There you go. But thank you guys for listening. Be sure to join in the Discord, because, transfer season is upon us. So be sure to join in there. And we've got a preview coming up for Watford, I imagine, this week. So look out for that. Nothing else to say, apart from, as always, come on, you whites.